Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be sitting here with a good friend and colleague, Mo Razik. And I've asked Mo to join us to create some clarity around supplementation. I've been really rallying around health just in the last couple of months, specifically realizing that when there's enough confusion around what to eat or how to move our bodies or what the best pillow is to sleep with, when we create confusion about anything, it can kind of take away the power and take away our motivation in terms of being proactive with health and wellness. And so I really wanted Mo to be here with us because he is a supplement expert. He is a senior regional manager with Designs for Health, and he's been working in the field of functional medicine and nutraceuticals for 20 years. So he is just primed to be here with us to create clarity around supplementation. So thank you, Mo, and welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the ask.
Yes. So we are going to go through, you guys gave me a long list of questions, so I'm just going to fire away and Mo is going to answer your questions. So question number one.
I'll try and do the best I can.
Yes, exactly. You're going to ace it. All right. Question number one that we've got here is, what are the best supplements for curbing sugar cravings?
Oh, well, okay. I usually like to start by saying that the best way to curb your sugar cravings is to avoid sugar. But if you were to have sugar cravings after a meal, I think one of the first things that you can reach out to is L-glutamine in a powder. It's really important as an ingredient that helps build the gut lining and the integrity of the gut. But when you take it in a powder, actually, it really helps with that sugar craving. Glycine in a powder form also can be very good and very helpful for something like that. We also have to think about sugar cravings as insulin resistance, and that's another topic in general. But every time you eat something, you have an insulin spike, right? And that's just the normal physiological reaction to having food, whether it's sugary or not. It's our response to actually managing our glucose. So trying to manage that component is also important. So something that you can look into if you do have some degree of insulin resistance is looking at chromium. That's also another capsule that you can take, or supplement that you can take. Around 300 micrograms of that after food also helps. So it's just a few things here, like L-glutamine, glycine, and chromium would be my top three.
Amazing. I love it. And then I'll just throw in my little caveat here. Of course, we are not making individualized recommendations for anyone. We're just throwing out generalized recommendations for conditions. But of course, it's always ideal to consult with your naturopathic doctor and or your medical doctor before introducing supplementation, just to play it safe, right? Just to prevent any adverse reactions or anything like that. So anyway, just throwing that in there for good measure.
Couldn't agree more.
Sorry?
I said couldn't agree more. I mean, everything is kind of personalized these days when it comes to medicine and the field of functional medicine and nutraceuticals. You want to specify for the patient and personalize what you're giving to them. Not everybody's response is the same. Not everybody's insulin sensitivity is the same. So you have to always want to keep that in mind.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome. And then question number two, Mo, is what supplements are best for skincare, specifically for hyperpigmentation, if there are any?
Well, skincare in general, I guess everything that I would mention for skincare would apply to some degree with hyperpigmentation. Hyperpigmentation is the increase of the melanin content in certain patches within the skin. And that usually is a result of overexposure to UV lights, sun exposure. So these are the things that you can do to mitigate that and try to reduce it naturally, of course. But in general, with skin health, we always think about fats. Fat is a very important component of our body and our physiology and how we function. It's very important to have good, healthy fats. So I always suggest, having fish oils. If you introduce fish oils and a good quality fish oil to your diet, in terms of a supplement that's tested and has been, tested for impurities, and there's a process that we call molecular distillation that has to apply to fish oils. That's one thing that I would highly recommend. And a slew of vitamins. So there's certain vitamins that are definitely important when it comes to skin health, like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin D as well. So because vitamin D deficiency actually has been attributed to hyperpigmentation. Beta carotenoids, these are really important compounds, as well as flavonoids. These are plant compounds that you do find that really significantly can help with overall skin health and to reduce hyperpigmentation. Although when it comes to that, you might need to have a specialist assess and also look into other treatment modalities, like there are some kind of treatments that they can use in clinic to directly target these areas of hyperpigmentation.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah. And just as you were talking about that, and I started thinking about, anyway, not to go down a rabbit hole, but just started thinking about marketing, how many products are actually marketed for skin health. Sometimes they'll throw in like a little bit of beta carotene, a little bit of zinc and biotin, and say like, hey, for anti-aging skin health. And so again, I'm jumping ahead to a further, question further down the list, but just thinking a little bit about, what can you speak a little bit to false advertising or false marketing, or maybe that's the wrong word, but just this idea that not all products that are on the market are created equally. And sometimes we're under the illusion that we're taking something for improving skin health or hair health or weight loss or whatever. And what does the industry look like? What does the behind the scenes look like for a professional line company, for example, like Designs for Health, versus, I won't name any names of supplement companies, but like something that you're going to pick up off the shelf in Walmart or Costco, or and whether or not you have any kind of thoughts around that.
I definitely do. Well, it is one of the most important questions that I do get. I get it from people that are direct clients, and I get it from people that I just know from the public. And it really is kind of the one factor that can distinguish what is an actual product that really works versus what is just a product that's been marketed without you knowing what the underlying factors are. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to a professional supplement, we look at everything from A to Z. Is where are you sourcing the raw ingredients from? Are you testing the raw ingredients? Do they pass quality testing? And there's several layers of quality testing. And this is before even it goes into actually production in terms of putting the formulations together, the ingredients together. Then you have to think about the synergistic components of these ingredients. How do they work and how do they complement each other if they do? Sometimes you actually might have to pull away from something and increase something and look at the balance. And that's how things work in nature. There's always a synergistic component to that. And that is all controlled, even to the extent of approving a product in the professional sphere. That has to be done through Health Canada. And it's a long and lengthy process that takes a lot of back and forth and a lot of communication, a lot of documentation exchange in order to obtain all of the information that's needed to get these approvals. So when you take a professional product, you are taking a product that's been vetted through and through. On the other hand, when you're actually taking a product that's generic, that's what we call the other forms that you can just pick up from anywhere. No one really knows. I don't know where you're sourcing the ingredients from. We do have some locations that we try to avoid when it comes to sourcing raw ingredients, just because of certain pollutants that might be there, certain factors. We don't know how rigorous the testing is when it comes to these raw ingredients. There's a lot of general information in terms of the synergy and how products work together, but are we optimizing the delivery mechanisms with them? Again, that's a big question. A simple thing like magnesium. Are we giving you a magnesium that your body is going to uptake and absorb, or are we giving you a magnesium that is just going to run through your body? Some minerals, for example, we have to actually give them in a combination, as in we have to attach them to something that your body is going to recognize, because otherwise your body will not. But what are we attaching it to? And that's called the chelate. So a lot of times people will use magnesium, one of the most widely used supplements, right? And they'll give it in a citrate or an oxate or an oxide form. But these can cause, in therapeutic doses, they can actually cause GI irritation. They can cause diarrhea. And that's not what we're going to be benefiting from. We want to give you the most out of a product. And I do get that you will be paying a higher price point for these professional products. But at the end of the day, you are paying for quality, you're paying for assurance, and you're paying for results. That's why a lot of the professional line of supplements are used by practitioners for their patients. When they come in and they see them, they have that reliability component.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. I think that is such an important topic, because I do feel like that is where the majority of confusion, I know there's confusion about, how much do I need and when do I take it? But I think the confusion begins before we get to that, is just like, oh my goodness, we go into the store and look at this range of products and range of prices, and sort of this false illusion that, magnesium is magnesium, and this one is on sale for,
Right.
$7 for 60 caps, and I'm going to go with that one. But just people not necessarily recognizing that they're not getting a therapeutic dose. Maybe while they're at it, they're getting like a little bit of heavy metal contamination. So you are taking something to, promote good sleep. It says on the bottle, helps promote restful sleep. And then lo and behold, you're causing diarrhea, you're getting a sprinkling of arsenic, and maybe you're not getting the sleep benefits. And so again, just really wanting to caution, to speak to that topic, right? That it really, all supplements are not created equally. And we know this in so many different other avenues of our lives. Like if you walk into a clothing store, not all clothes are produced the same. And you go into different restaurants and there's different tiers, and you go into, cars, well, different, levels of quality. And so I'm not sure where the disconnect is there with supplementation, but I do know that this is something that I feel like I run into with lots of clients, just sort of the, oh yeah, I ran out of the one that you gave me, so I picked up an oversized bottle at Costco, and this feeling of like, yikes, I do want you supporting inflammation with your omega-3s, but I really don't want to be giving you mercury while we're doing that. And so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So
100%. And when you break down a lot of these ingredients at the same time, well, you are paying and investing in your health. And don't you want the best quality when you actually are doing that? You don't want to be paying for a supplement and, excuse the term, that you're actually going to pee right away. Because a lot of times that's what you end up doing. If you end up peeing it or excreting it, without absolutely taking the full benefits of it, then you're wasting your money regardless. So you might
yes.
as well invest in really, really good quality products. And again, when it comes to a lot of the supplements that are out there, the generic supplements, there's a lot more flexibility when it comes to the marketing and the claims. We don't have that. If we make a claim, we actually have to back it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I will move off this topic, but just out of curiosity, I don't know if you know the answer to this. What percentage of products on the market right now do you think have been government approved, like have that NPH number? Is that what it is? NPH or?
It's an MPN.
NPN, sorry. The
Yeah.
NPN versus, products that don't have that sort of stamp.
Well, some products have a DIN number, which is not the NPN number. An NPN number is a specific number that gives you that qualification. I don't have off the top of my head a percentage. That's very difficult just because the market is really saturated.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you want to look for an NPN number that a product has. And that will give you some degree of reliability when you're actually out there purchasing something. And try to educate yourself, try to ask the right questions to the right people. I mean, Dr. Google can be very misleading. So I do always suggest that if you have questions and if you have concerns, address that with your practitioner. And they will hopefully be able to answer those in terms of the products that you are going to be using. I think the convenience of getting it directly from a practitioner outweighs the actual confusion that you can actually get exposed to when you're trying to navigate that yourself. But ask as many questions as you can.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. All right. Okay. So I went down on a little tangent there, but a good tangent. Next question is about what supplements are good for bloating and or water retention.
Well, when it comes to bloating, water retention, I consider those, a couple of symptoms that really kind of raise a red flag of some degree of sensitivity to what you're eating, first of all, and gastrointestinal integrity. And is there a degree of gut inflammation? These are the questions that I believe a practitioner would start questioning and looking at in terms of assessing a patient who's presenting with those symptoms. I think from a perspective of an individual who's experiencing those, you probably already know what foods you eat that can cause you these kind of symptoms. And if there's no confirmation, it is an indication that you are sensitive to. And everybody can actually do a bit of an elimination diet to some degree. And if you can't, always address that with your healthcare provider or your naturopathic doctor or nutritionist. But I think these are the first things that we can be looking at. Secondly, the truth is that we do live in a society that actually deals with a condition that's called hypohydrochlorhydria, which means that our stomach acid is actually reduced. We don't produce enough stomach acid that we need to in order to fully digest. So this leads to incomplete digestion. And it's not just in the stomach or in the intestinal tract. All of those are part of the digestive tract, but digestion starts from in the mouth, the process of mastication and chewing properly, right? And the saliva that it produces, that stimulates stomach acidity and the production of that, which is a very, very important in breaking down those foods. So I think an incomplete digestion or a digestion that hasn't reached its potential is one of the biggest factors, along with food sensitivity. So we need to figure out what those sensitivities are. We need to address if there is decreased stomach acidity and help in building that up. Unfortunately, a lot of issues with food in terms of gastroesophageal reflux or heartburn have been addressed the opposite way from what I think should be. Most of the times it's with antacids, and antacids actually exacerbate that condition. And then you have to deal with the weaning off of the antacids and trying to improve the integrity of the lining so that the stomach can actually start producing and handle the increased acidity. Acidity is there as a normal physiological response that is there to help us break down foods. And if we do that properly, we'll probably avoid all of these other issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you raised so many good points there. And I think one thing that I was thinking as you were talking about hypochlorhydria is again, we're so busy, all of us. We're rushing around all the time. We're in sympathetic. We've activated the branch of our nervous system that's kind of in survival mode. And as much as we like to think of ourselves as very physiologically advanced from our ancestors, our physiology has not changed that much. And so again, when you think about that branch of the nervous system is the fight or flight or their survival. And if you're an animal running away for your life, you're not stopping along the way to grab a burger, right? Like you're not designed to be eating in that state. And so many of us are living our lives in that state where digestion just cannot function optimally in that state. And so sometimes, yes, the food sensitivities, and yes, the hypochlorhydria, and yes, sometimes the underlying root cause of that is stress, so sometimes we treat bloating by getting people to slow down, take some deep
rest and digest.
Yeah,
there's a reason why people say that, rest and digest.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So anyway, amazing, love it, thank you. Okay, so I think you pretty much spoke to this in your last response when I was kind of grilling you about how do we know what a quality supplement looks like. But that is the question: how can you tell if the supplements that you're taking are good quality? How much does it matter in terms of the availability of the supplement to perform the intended function? So you highlighted all of those things, I think.
If I may add something though, that when it comes to professional supplements, I think one of the most important factors that are not necessarily addressed, especially when you're comparing it to generic, is that professional supplements are usually prescribed by a practitioner, a functional medicine practitioner, naturopath, a nutritionist, someone who's in the know, who knows how these ingredients kind of work. But there also is an aim, and it's a therapeutic aim. But that also means that the ingredients and the doses are actual therapeutic doses. So you actually have to be aware of what you're prescribing, and that's why they work. Because they're in therapeutic doses, it means that you don't need as much to achieve results. While with a generic one, you might actually have to take significant doses in order to get there. And if the dose seems high, you have to look into the actual form that it's in order to know whether that is actually going to achieve the end goal or not.
Yes. Yeah, great point. I often sometimes will talk about vitamin C, you know, when we look at recommended daily allowances, the recommended daily allowance is to prevent scurvy, you know. So it's
Absolutely.
not
Yes.
necessarily, you know, when we take, it's like, oh, I only need whatever, 200 milligrams per day of vitamin C to not get scurvy. Anyway, I'm just making that number up. But then when we're telling you to take 3,000 milligrams per day, it's because it's antioxidant. It's because it's boosting, you know, cellular function. And so again,
Absolutely.
that therapeutic dose, using things in ways that are not just about preventing deficiencies, but optimizing different functions and addressing different conditions. So yeah.
That's a very important point, actually, because a lot of times you will see recommended doses in literature that don't necessarily make sense in practice in terms of what we want to achieve. These are just basic recommended doses, the lowest minimums, you know, of what you should be recommended. Vitamin D is another example. Magnesium is another example. Zinc is another example. We can go on and on and on about dosing and about what you actually need in order to reach a desired outcome. When am I doing the bare minimum versus getting to that antioxidant level? For as an example. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So the disease state, you know, like, okay, when your when your ferritin's under 11, you now have iron deficiency anemia. But when your ferritin is at 80, you have optimization of ferritin levels in order to be able to do different things. And so again, just really recognizing a lot, like you just said, a lot of our recommended daily allowances are very conservative, based on preventing deficiencies rather than optimization of function. And so this is where the difference of, you know, functional medicine really does come into play in terms of recognizing that, yes, the body will withstand deficiencies for a very long time, but if it doesn't have to, why would we? Why would we?
It's the basic difference. Yeah, and it's the basic difference between surviving and thriving. These are the doses where you will survive at, and these are the doses where you will thrive at.
Excellent. Yeah, love it. Amazing. Okay, so what are the most important, and actually I'm going to ask you this question and then I'm going to grab my computer charger while you start answering. What are the most important supplements that people should be taking on a regular basis? Obviously, I'm sure right away you're thinking, it depends, but I'll let you go to it.
It really does depend, but I get this question quite often, and I often try to break it down to a foundational 5 kind of way, although sometimes it kind of has to, you know, get to 6. But if you think about it, like a multivitamin is really important just to give you a good rounded a daily intake of vitamins and minerals, and that might include additional B vitamins. That's why I say it might be, you know, 6, because I do think B vitamins are really essential in terms of our daily activity, our energy component. They have a very important physiological function in so many areas of our body. We can't exist really without the B vitamins. I think a fish oil is really important. It gives us that really good fat content, gives us that anti-inflammatory aid that we really need. Reducing inflammation is very, very important. Vitamin D, one of the essentials. I cannot say how important vitamin D is enough. You can name probably 300 enzymatic functions in the body plus that vitamin D relies on, and the same with magnesium. Like, these are really, really essential and important, and also in doses that we need to really push a little bit more on. So we said probiotics, said vitamin D, zinc. I think that kind of covers it. Did I miss anything? Magnesium, vitamin
I've
D,
got multivitamin,
zinc, a multi, Bs, and probiotic.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say multivitamin. You know, it's interesting because people ask me that a lot. And it often feels sort of like it's one of these like, it depends on your personality a little bit is usually my answer.
I have a more complicated answer as well.
Yeah, where it just sort of feels like, but a B complex for sure. It feels like that is my probably B, D, and magnesium are definitely top things that I prescribe. Fish oil, I love fish oil. It is a tough sell for lots of people because they feel like it makes them, if they're taking the oil, they find it stinky. If they're taking the caps and they've got hypochlorhydria, as you indicated earlier, they're going to be burping fish oil, that kind of thing. And so that one is a little bit harder to sell. And then the probiotics, again, I do sort of tell people, let your digestive system guide you there, right? Like if you're gassy and you're burpy and you're constipated and you've got diarrhea, yeah, you need a probiotic. If things are a well-oiled machine, and I won't say any more than that, then maybe you don't need a probiotic on a daily basis. But yeah,
that's right. And even when it comes to the probiotics, which kinds of probiotics would you actually be needing? Do we have any degree of disturbance of the microbiome and dysbiosis? That's when you will pull back. There's a lot of different. That's why it's very difficult. You have to assess it, even when it comes to just the multis. I say yes, you can definitely take a multi. The B vitamins are really essential to me, and the multi also depends on the person and the individual, because we do have specific multis as well. We have a multi for someone who's expecting prenatal, right, and postnatal. So that's a prenatal multi. We have a multi that for someone who requires support for their mitochondria, which are the energy houses. That's another multi that you can consider. If someone has a little bit of insulin resistance or is pre-diabetic, then we have multis that are targeted towards that. So you can just forego a regular multi and be more targeted with your multis. So there's a lot of ways that a professional would know how to prescribe and what to do and what to pull back on and what to push.
Yeah. Yes. I love it. Actually, as you mentioned, the mitochondrial, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm taking right now, the mitochondrial NRG. Anyway, when I read the ingredient list, it's like, yes, give it to me.
Exactly. And also when you look at, fish oils, what you said is very accurate, that people have issues because they end up burping. They don't have the ability to break down that increased level of fat intake. And maybe their bile, their gallbladder is a little bit sluggish, but and their digestive enzymes are not optimized, or the HCl is not optimized. So what we do, for example, we give you a little trick where we give you a little bit of a digestive aid in the soft gel itself, on the outer layer of the soft gel. So when it's exposed to the stomach acidity, it starts working. So then you actually break down that additional fat and you don't get that burping. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually scientifically improve on these issues and complaints that the patient have. But this is where the guidance comes from the practitioner.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, and this is where, when you do rely on products that are innovative and that are, taking this feedback and recognizing, okay, we've got a society that's low in hydrochloric acid, but we've also got deficiencies or such a strong need of omega-3. I've got an idea. Let's make a product that's, that's user-friendly, that people will actually take. So we're going to give them we're going to enhance that process for them. So I do feel like that's part of what Designs for Health and other professional lines do offer, which is, again, in our best interests, right? Looking out for
100%.
the individuals taking the products. Amazing. Okay, next question is really specific to, is it necessary to take calcium and magnesium together or separately?
Okay, that's a question I struggle with a little bit. There is a synergistic component with magnesium and calcium, absolutely. So it is advised to take them together, and sometimes it's a calcium to magnesium ratio of 2-to-1 ratio. That is great, that is optimal. But at the end of the day, I also feel that there's an abundance of sources of calcium that we actually do have on a day-to-day basis when it comes to our food intake, when it comes to fortified foods with calcium, when it comes to different sources of calcium. You can find that in, of course, dairy sources. You can find it in sardines, leafy greens, like I said, the fortified foods in terms of the cereals, the bran, the cornflakes. All of those have really, really good high servings. Orange juice. So you do get a good amount of that, but my concern isn't actually that. It's where at the end of the day is calcium deposited. That to me is one of the most important things, because I don't want your calcium just to be deposited in your bloodstream. Calcium deposited in the bloodstream can cause calcification and buildup of calcium, which can cause atherosclerosis. The arteries can get rigid. The important thing is that calcium needs to go into the bone. And this is something that a lot of people forget. And I think there might be something about that later on. But if I can just mention it here, that calcium, in order for it to be diverted to the bone, requires a good and adequate amount of vitamin D3, along with vitamin K2. K2 is the most important ingredient here that diverts calcium and helps it deposit into the bone where it's needed the most. Because you can find people taking calcium like crazy, and they're within that age, and they start developing osteoporosis. And the question becomes, well, I've been taking calcium in pretty good doses, but I'm still having, poor bone structure. That's mainly because we're not really diverting the calcium to the proper channels.
Mhm. Yes, amazing. Very good point. And you're right. That does answer someone else's question just about, do you need to take D3 and K2 together? And that's exactly why, right? That you're directing, as you said, you're directing that calcium to bone, which is the point of taking calcium in the first place. And
it is the point of taking it in the first place.
yeah.
And I think part of the question here was also, do you obtain calcium from marine life? Yes, you can. So absolutely, crustaceans, shellfish, fish bones, seaweed, all of these have really good high quantities of calcium.
Yeah. And there is a question here that says, is there a source of calcium that is not derived from the ocean?
What
Like
calcium?
in terms of supplementation, like, a lot of.
Yeah, some of them are not derived from the ocean.
Okay, so it'll just say right on there on the product what the source of the calcium is.
Well, the source in terms of the marine life has just kind of been in the most recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then, the question, should everyone be taking calcium? Obviously, our answer to that is going to be, we can't say no. Not everyone should be taking calcium. So
it depends. This is where personalized medicine comes into effect.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. What is the minimum daily supplements that most people need to take? I know it's pretty vague. I know, again, the answer is going to be, it depends here, but just for purposes of making sure everyone gets their answers, what would you say to that, Mo?
The minimum daily supplements, I think it comes back down to I guess the main fives that we just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
I think this is a kind of a repeat question. If you take your B vitamins, vitamin D, I can't stress how important vitamin D is. I'm not saying that everybody should be doing this, but I take up to 8 to 10,000 IUs per day, and I don't take it every day, but most days I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's D3. I do take a good amount of zinc with my meals, specifically. So those two are important. B vitamins and magnesium. Like I'm one of those people who actually feels the effects of magnesium deficiency, and I know that it's something that I struggle with. So I'm constantly trying to take my magnesium, and I take magnesium in the form of magnesium glycinate.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the bioavailability of it. The bioavailability meaning the uptake, our ability to uptake that magnesium. So these are the things that I do. I don't take a probiotic daily. I take a probiotic every now and then, and fish oils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it is like, again, I'm not sure where this question came from, but I think what is important to, when we think about, like, why are we asking these questions, we need to think about how are you feeling? What's your baseline? If you're feeling terrible, then absolutely supplementation and attention to what you're eating and how much sleep you're getting is going to be, that much more important than if you're feeling like, if you wake up every day and you're feeling like you have the energy that you need, you've got the joy that you want, you've got the purpose, like if you're ticking all these boxes, then agonizing over like, oh my gosh, do I need 6 supplements a day or 5 supplements a day becomes less relevant than, when you have more symptoms and more things that you're wanting to address, obviously, right?
100%, and everybody's capacity to actually sustain a protocol is very different. Some might be very successful with 5 or 6 products that they would take, and their personality is just built that way. They have no problem sticking to a protocol like that, and some people might not. So when it comes to that, then you'd want to really be selective in what's really important to them, to their needs. This is where you're tailoring it to everybody's individual needs and what you can do. And when you have time during, or what you do in terms of work, and where are your free times, and what you're taking and when it needs to be taken. Does it need to be taken away from food, with food, and so on? There's a lot of things that need to be kind of addressed.
Yes, absolutely. And just on your point about vitamin D, I will also highlight the importance of vitamin D supplementation. And I've been running much more vitamin D in labs, and I can't believe
Mhm.
how many people's how much vitamin D is coming back as insufficient. Even people that are taking 3,000 IU, 4,000 IU daily. So again, it does speak to a lot of times this ability to absorb, right? It's not always that there's a deficiency.
Yeah, our gut health will impact that significantly. And don't forget, where we are in terms of our geographic location has a very significant impact on our vitamin D levels. So I would suggest that every single person living in the North Hemisphere, up the ante when it comes to their vitamin D intake. We're not exposed to the sun like we think, and it doesn't matter whether you go out and it's sunny and you're actually getting sun right now in the winter. It's a beautiful sunny day today, but
Yeah.
the angle of the sun is a big factor. The body surface that's exposed to the sun, the melanin content on the skin, are you blocking it or not? Darker people like myself, absolutely not going to have adequate vitamin D naturally. So we need to take vitamin D. It's
Yes.
so important.
Yeah.
Our immune system will suffer completely if we don't take vitamin D.
Yeah. Even if that's the one thing that people take away from here, we'll just have like the flashing sign, like vitamin D, vitamin D.
Vitamin D3 with K2.
Yes, exactly. This interview is sponsored by vitamin D3 and K2. Um, okay, and someone's asking about supplementation for promoting eyesight and healthy eyes.
Well, when it comes to eyesight, there's a few things that you kind of have to take into consideration. Like there's a number of vitamins that are really important to eyesight. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is always vitamin A. We've been taught that ever since we were kids. Vitamin A, eat your carrots. They've
Yes.
got carotenoids in it. Mainly the zeaxanthin, that's the really important component of the carrots, of the carotenoids. That's really important. But the vitamin A content, of course, is really important. That's important for corneal health. So the health of the front part of the eye where you actually see the color, that's really important. So and it also prevents the formation of cataracts. We need a good amount of antioxidants, like vitamin E is also a really good antioxidant. Vitamin C, we mentioned this earlier, these are really good antioxidants. B vitamins, all actually across the board, all the B vitamins are really important for for eye health. And there's something that we actually have to take care of when it comes to the B vitamins, and it's the homocysteine content. And we want that to be controlled and balance that really well. So that directly has an impact on eye health. So vitamin B6, B9, B12, those play a very important role there. And of course, fish oils. I can't stress fish oils are really important as well. They play a very important role when it comes to eyesight. I think also you know collagen, anything that can increase the collagen content, like vitamin C, can actually naturally increase our collagen content. That's
Mhm.
something that you can consider.
Amazing. And not to put you on the spot to speak about another company's product, but I just know that I see a lot of clients that are prescribed Vitalux for
Excuse me.
macular
Macular
degeneration.
degeneration. Yeah.
And just, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that product, but I just was wondering, like, if you could speak to doses or, because I know occasionally sometimes companies will grab on to the ingredients that are helpful, knowing that, okay, lutein and vitamin A, and we need all of these ingredients to show up on here because we know that our customers are going to be looking for these things. But just curious what the quality is of that product, just knowing the number of people that are on it.
I cannot speak to the
Yeah.
quality of it, to tell you the truth. I
Yeah.
do know that it's not a professional brand, so I would actually want to look into certain documentation that they can present. But this is the stuff that I would look from a professional perspective, and I don't expect the individual to look at that. They will just see ingredients and go, okay, well, this looks fine and it meets all the requirements, and I'll take it. And you know what? That's fine, but there are other better options out there. For example, just an zeaxanthin or an astaxanthin or krill oil. These are really good for macular degeneration. We highly suggest taking a really good quality krill oil for something like that. So it doesn't have to be a full list of ingredients, but again, if you're taking a lot of these B vitamins and high dose vitamin C, you know, do you need a multi like that that can hit on all of those with reduced quantities, or you just rely on the actual higher doses?
Yeah, amazing. Well, and that is the beauty of recognizing that a lot of those top six that you highlighted for us in terms of supplements, they tick so many boxes. They're helping so many different things, right? And so when we can take a B complex and help our liver, and also help our eyes, and also
Multi-system.
right, then it feels
Yeah.
like a real win, right? A good financial investment, and then of course a good health investment as well. Yeah.
Yep. And this is what a practitioner will be able to guide with, like giving you a product that's going to hit on so many different fronts.
Yes, exactly. Um, okay, where are we now? Got that. I think you already spoke to this, but is timing important of when to take supplements?
Yes, it is important with depending on the supplement. So some supplements are fat soluble, some vitamins are fat soluble. They need to be taken with food, like your vitamin D, for example. Some supplements are water soluble or vitamins are water soluble, so they don't necessarily. The aided absorption that happens when it comes to certain foods is always an important factor to consider. Also, something like zinc. I wouldn't take zinc away from food, mainly because if you take zinc on an empty stomach, it causes nausea, right? So there's a few things that you just have to keep in mind. B vitamins are to be taken in the morning because they help us with energy. Vitamin D helps us with energy. Vitamin C helps the adrenals. It's a very good adrenal tonic in terms of its vitamin component. You don't want to stimulate something like that in the evening. And then, of course, there are certain things that should be taken at bedtime. I always say, you know, rest and digest. So depending on what you're doing and what you're taking after food, make sure that you're resting. And there's certain things that, you know, like probiotics. I feel that the best time to take probiotics is at bedtime. You know, that's a very simple thing that you can just leave your probiotics if they are shelf stable, leave them by your counter at night. After you brush your teeth, take a couple and then you just go to bed.
Yeah.
So it really depends. There's definitely more rigorous components when it comes to supplementation and the timing of them, and so it all depends on what we're doing and what we want to achieve, and the type of supplement or the nutraceutical that we're taking.
Yeah. Yes. And I often will talk to clients a little bit just about like the good, better, best, let's just, because lots of people say like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to remember to take supplements at lunch. Or if I take it, I've got to take everything at bedtime, or I've got to take everything in the morning. It's like, okay, let's just start by getting you taking the things, and then we can fine tune and we can make sure that we can work on the compliance of timing once you've got things in there. But again, people getting so cerebral about like, how am I going to remember to take I forgot my B complex at lunchtime. And you're thinking like, it's all good. Like, we'll work on it. But I don't love this idea of like a huge handful of pills down the hatch, like once a day. It's like, that's not a good
It doesn't
investment.
work that way. And we
Better
also
off.
have to look at absorption and what will impede the absorption of other ingredients. Like
Yeah.
one can do that, right? So you
Yes.
have to be careful.
Yeah. So it feels like if that's the only way that we're going to get you to take supplements, then we need to dial back the list of things that we're giving you, because we're not, you're not going to reap the benefits of taking, taking, all those things in one go. It's B vitamins, wanting to take both of them at the same time. It's like, well, they're water soluble. Like you're not going to be absorbing all of it. Right. So
Yes,
anyways, we learn. Okay.
that's all we can ask for.
Exactly. Yeah. Work in progress. And then we've got a supplement or a question here about what supplements would be most helpful for my body after training, for running specifically. And is there a window of opportunity when you should be taking those supplements for best results? And then she's got in brackets here, I've heard that protein should be consumed within 30 minutes of a workout. Anyway, this is a very specific question, but I'll put it out there in case you've got an answer that comes to mind.
Well, yeah, I agree. Proteins should be taken, proteins, amino acids should be taken within that window immediately after working out, whether it's running or weight training. I think one of the first things that we have to consider is hydration. And hydration isn't a process that you just do before working out or during working out. Your body, you kind of need to stay hydrated, right? So doing electrolytes is always a great thing to be on. Amino acids are really great. They actually really balance the cellular hydration and the cellular water content. So these are things that we want to look at, and of course not missing out on the minerals. If you're exercising, especially in different conditions, and you're sweating, you're going to be sweating all of these minerals. So you need to compensate for that. And having a balance between your sodium and your potassium, these are really important things to consider. So hydration, there's a lot of things that can go into that. Electrolytes, amino acids, potassium content. So those are one of the areas that I like to focus on first. But I also look at it in terms of muscle wasting and trying to avoid that, especially whether it's something like a runner who's doing some long distances. There's going to be muscle breakdown, and you want to have the ingredients that are going to help prevent that muscle breakdown and help faster repair. So carnitine is really good for muscle protection. L-carnitine, that's one of the things that I think about. In terms of recovery, I think about creatine. Creatine is really good. And it helps with energy synthesis. ATP synthesis is very important in your Krebs cycle and ATP production and the mitochondrial health. And like mentioned, the proteins immediately after working out would be good. That half-hour window is ideal. And branched chain amino acids and leucine. L-glutamine is also one of the amino acids that I think about quite a bit, mainly because it helps us produce our natural growth hormone and helps with muscle wasting, and it's GI protective. Don't forget, any strenuous exercise is stress on the body as a whole, right? So you want to mitigate that. You want to protect it because the immune system can suffer, the GI system can suffer. So you want to give the nutrients that are going to help mitigate that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. So basically the bottom line is, yes, there's so many different things to be thinking about, right? With regards to athletics and performance. And I guess it really does depend on the level of activity, and antioxidants are huge as well, right? Just
absolutely.
Although exercise is amazing, the higher the intensity, the more free radical generation.
The more free radicals.
Yeah. So then
inflammation is goes hand in hand with exercise. So you want to mitigate that with fish oils as well. Curcumin can be really good also when it comes to inflammatory processes and managing that. There's a lot that can go into it, but at the end of the day, like you said, it depends on the level of exercise and activity.
Yes. If only we had this conversation 8 months ago, before I had run my my marathon, and totally just depleted my body. And my adrenals actually were what really took it.
Yes, very good point. The adrenals do take a very big hit when it comes to exercise, and my own experience with personal training was actually a little bit related to how my adrenals were depleted at the time, yet I'm being pushed and pushed and pushed, and my body's not responding, not having the energy, not sleeping enough, not waking up with enough energy and vigor. All these were signs that my adrenals were depleted, yet I'm being pushed. And then you hit a point where you just can't go any further. So keep all of that in mind when you're working out. Ease yourself into it, build on it.
Yeah, and listen, right? Like, just make time for all these things. Just listen, check in with yourself about energy levels, about sleep quality, about digestive health, and all these pieces. Again, we really are each experts in our own bodies if we do create a little bit of time to listen. But I think a lot of us are just so busy doing and move, like taking action, that sometimes we forget to actually reflect on the actions that we're taking. So anyway, just a little side note about pausing to watch the clouds float by occasionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Someone's asking about, are there any supplements flying under the radar that we need to know about?
Generally, for overall, just general population, I think if there's anything that we talk about a lot more these days is stress and anxiety and management of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that, we try to mitigate with more prescriptive supplements that a practitioner would overlook.
Yeah.
So and then nootropics, which are really important, nutraceuticals for brain health in general. I think that's one of the areas that we see the need a lot more for these days in the professional setting. So that's just a reflection of what's happening in the population, in the general population.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. I was going to say there's one supplement that I feel is getting a lot of like super trendy right now, and that's collagen.
Collagen, absolutely. Collagen has been trendy for quite a few years and it continues to be. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception about collagen. It's not like you're just going to take collagen and replace it. The idea of taking collagen is to stimulate your body's ability to produce collagen, because you can't take collagen to fill up reservoirs. No, it's about stimulating your body's ability to produce collagen. That's why looking at the collagen itself, looking at the peptides that are in the collagen is a really important factor. These are one of the things that I look at specifically, because there are specific collagen peptides that need to be there in order to allow for that stimulation to go. So yeah, it's a good one that you mentioned there.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Moving right along, we've got, are there any supplements that you feel postmenopausal women should be taking or should be, kind of considering? Seeing as you're a postmenopausal woman, I feel like you'll have a lot of. Yeah.
That
it
is,
depends.
well, 100% it depends, because it depends on the hormonal profile. First of all, where are you postmenopausally? And I cannot say, yes, you can do supplementation and and I say basic supplementation for someone who's postmenopausal, who's presenting with certain symptoms that you can assess as a practitioner, looking at, whether they present with certain symptoms of imbalance when it comes to estrogen versus progesterone, and managing that. But this is where you don't just rely on that. You rely on testing, and you rely on accurate data, and then you rely on proper supplementation. We can also, because there's a lot of that you can do when you do have that to rely on, that information to rely on. But a lot of times, we are looking at ingredients like Agnus castus. We're looking at ingredients like black cohosh. We're looking at estrogen detoxification. We're looking at all levels of detoxification when it comes to estrogen. What is the status of estrogen and estradiol in the system, and all of that? Those are really important factors to take into consideration. Yeah. But at the same time, I can say that is directly linked to overall bone health. Osteoporosis and osteopenia, these are really kind of related to that stage of life. So working on vitamin D and vitamin D with K2 and looking at bone density is going to be really important. So I would up the ante on that. And so these are the areas that I would definitely look at. And of course, inflammation is going to be a factor. So I would look at reducing inflammation in general with curcuminoids and fish oils. So yeah, again, it's a little bit of a loaded question, for the lack of a better term, just because everybody's hormonal journey is going to be different, and you have to kind of target, even with one individual, you would modify your treatment plan according to where they are today versus where they were a month ago.
Yes, definitely. Agree. So many different, just again, I've listened to so many different stories, and the symptoms are not the same, and the presentation is different. And for someone, it could be sleep. For someone else, it could be, hot flashes. For someone else, it could be anxiety. So we really do want to treat the individual and not not the stage of life, right? Just recognizing
not the stage of life.
yeah.
Yep,
And
100%.
and I do feel like I will often sort of revisit or highlight the importance of liver support, adrenal support. Any times that we're under, I mean, menopause, we can think of it, it's a massive physiological stress. I know it's part of being human, but it is a physiological stress. So when we know that we're asking more of our adrenals to adapt to changing levels of hormone, it is important to make sure that we've got strong adrenals for the, stress component of it, but strong adrenals because they do produce some of the precursors to the hormones that are declining, right? And so just the importance of having ample DHEA, so that if your ovaries are not producing estrogen, at least you've got this pool of DHEA to pull from that can be converted into that hormone. So those are my two areas where I do tend to focus, but I do love that you highlighted the D3 and K2 because I think that's hugely important as well. All right, and this is a bit of a rhetorical question perhaps, but if we eat a balanced diet, do you still need to take supplements?
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, our diet isn't as well-rounded as we think it should be, or we think it is. There is a significant amount of nutrient depletion that is a result of certain farming techniques. Our soil is depleted. If our soil is depleted, then what's grown in the soil is going to be depleted. So whatever we think we're getting from our fruits and vegetables, we're not really doing that. So a big source of our nutrients are lacking. So that's one of the things that we need to consider. We also need to try and eat as much as we can organically, just because exposure to pesticides is a very big problem in today's world, and that causes an incredible amount of free radicals to be produced and oxidative stress. So we need to manage that with proper detoxification plans. And so I cannot, the days that we used to say you can rely on that are long gone in decades, right? So I absolutely think that yes, we do need to take supplements in this day and age. We'd love to be able to rely on food. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and eat a well-rounded, comprehensive, nutrient-dense diet, but then achieving that nutrient density is going to be the problem. So you do need to supplement.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah. And I think it comes back to before, as you were talking about, surviving versus thriving, right? I mean, all of us want to thrive. All of us want that. I mean, I've never met anyone who said, I just want to get through life by surviving. Like, we all want all day energy. We all want vitality and joy in all of these pieces. So yes, we do need to make sure that we're compensating.
I think there is a misguided opinion that food is a source of energy, and that's all it does. Food is definitely a source of energy, but food is a source of nutrients. And there are a significant number of diseases that exist in today's world, from the simplest to the most complex ones, that are really derived by nutrient deficiencies. And if we address them at a good point, we actually limit the chances of anything happening or anything progressing. It's a lot more than just providing energy and fuel. It's more than that. Every single cell of our body depends on these nutrients, these micronutrients and the macronutrients. But it really is all about getting that balance in and favoring that playbook.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. All right. What are your thoughts around pills versus powders versus liquid? Some people I do get this a lot from clients, that they feel somehow that liquid is easier or better absorbed than capsules. And just wondering if you can speak to that.
Well, all of that is kind of done for us. All of that depends on how we want it to be absorbed. Where do we want it to be absorbed? Do we want it broken down in the stomach? Do we want it to be broken down in the small or the large intestine? All of that is just scientific, right? Yeah. So yes, we can say I have a preference, but are you getting the maximum benefit from a soft gel versus a capsule? there's reasons why we actually do that. There's reasons why fish oils are in a soft gel. There's reasons why we want you to take something in a liquid form versus a capsule form, or a tablet form. So everything is kind of designed in a way to optimize absorption at the end of the day, and assimilation and uptake of it. So the argument that I can't take it, I only try and modify, and these modifications are available just because we also have to understand that there's certain limitation to certain people. Some people cannot take a full, capsule size or a regular capsule size of a product. So then we can provide it in a powder, right? And we just try and give you the best opportunities to for the uptake of these ingredients. So yeah, it's kind of pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So it is a myth, though. It is a myth that liquid is better absorbed than capsule.
Well, look at liquid is going to go through your body a lot faster, right? So certain ingredients need to take a little bit more time in order to be broken down and to be uptaken by the body. So is it really going to be more beneficial? At the end of the day, it depends on what we're doing. For example, I do like taking my magnesium in a powder form rather than a capsule form. And it's not because this is a better form of absorption. It's really because, I'm taking more than one powder form. I'm taking my electrolytes and my magnesium and maybe my amino acids together. So I put them in one shaker cup and I take it all together, right? So it depends. Once you start playing around with your products and knowing when you can take what and how, you'll figure it out. If it's available in a different method of delivery, that means it's still a valid form, and it's up to the patient or the practitioner to decide, do I do it in a capsule form or in a pill form or in a powder form? But certain things are not going to be found in a capsule form. They will be in a pill form only, just because there's certain lozenges, right, that we take because we don't want you to swallow them. We want you to put it under your tongue because this is where the capillaries are really rich. This is where you benefit from that absorption. And we're also avoiding the stomach acidity. So there's reasoning behind everything.
Yeah. Excellent. You're so smart, Mo.
I've been doing this a long time, that's all.
Yeah. Yes, I can tell. Okay. Are there any supplements, or there's a question here about what 5 things would you like supplement users to be aware of? I know you've spoken to some of these things, but yeah, if we're thinking about like getting our spidey senses on about like areas where we can go astray, what are a few of them?
Well, of course, focusing on the quality. So looking at generic versus non-generic or professional. Don't focus on necessarily the dose, but look at them at the bioavailability of it. And these are some of the things that you might not know by yourself, and that's why the guidance of a professional would always help. So even if you want to pick something up from a dispensary that's available to you, ask the people that are there. There usually is a nutritionist there to ask, but my preference is to have that one-on-one with the practitioner who's helping you. Yeah, really kind of just looking, I mean, the whole conversation today was kind of giving you an idea of main things. I can't really necessarily name 5 things. Like if you want to talk about, vitamin D and K2, that's a must. Like, please make sure that you're taking your vitamin D3 with a K2, right? So there's certain things that are magnesium. Make sure it's a magnesium glycinate. Please don't take a citrate. We only prescribe citrate when someone has constipation, right? And we want to move their bowels. They're having difficulty with their bowel movements. These are some of the things that I like to highlight.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I agree. You've already answered it. So I just put it out there because somebody mentioned that question specifically. I think one of the other things that I would say there is less is sometimes more. Sometimes people bring in grocery bags of stuff that they bought because it was on sale. And I would have rather they had 6 quality things in their bag than 17 mediocre things. And I think that, I really want us to think about, if you're finding supplements expensive, don't think about taking all the things, think about taking a few good quality things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
Compliance
amazing.
is a very big problem with a lot of patients, and a lot of practitioners deal with that. They're seeing that compliance is not optimized, and they realize that you just give the necessary nutraceuticals and supplements in terms of your recommendations so that the patient can actually get used to it and stick to it. At the end of the day, if they're not taking it, there's no benefit.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, all right. And what about deficiencies? Top 3 or 4 nutrient deficiencies for North Americans specifically.
Well, I've already mentioned one a couple of times, vitamin D. We already know that that's a North American deficiency, not just in North America, globally.
Mhm.
People say, oh, well, what about people in the southern hemisphere or by the equator? Well, guess what? People by the equator are darker skinned, and people by the equator are also not going out and sunbathing. It doesn't happen. So vitamin D deficiency is a global problem, actually, not just a North American one. So, but I cannot highlight it. And like you said, you have hands-on experience of people being tested that come back with, and I was one of them. I thought that my vitamin D levels were fine until I got tested, and I got tested twice in the last 2 years just to see, how I'm progressing. So absolutely that. I do think magnesium deficiency is one of the deficiencies that no one talks about, but most of us are deficient in magnesium. And it's such an important mineral that, again, plays a really important physiological role in a lot of chemical reactions in our body and enzymatic reactions. And deficiencies of it are felt, but we don't even recognize them. Simple twitches, restless leg syndrome, if your eyelids are twisting, cardiac arrhythmias and palpitations. These are all, some of the symptoms that show up later on in that deficiency, not at the beginning. So by the time you get that, you're actually really quite deficient. So magnesium is one of those, and I think also we don't rely on so zinc. So I think this kind of gives you an idea. Minerals and vitamins are quite the highlighted ones. I feel that zinc is also one of those minerals that is very, very important, and we're very deficient on, and we need to supplement that. 50 to 60 milligrams per day is pretty much a really good standard for zinc with food.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. I was going to add omegas to that. I know that we don't often test omegas when we're looking at people's blood, but just because I used to do live cell microscopy and would look at the integrity of cellular membranes, and just noted that not across the board, but there was, definitely often signs of essential fatty acid deficiencies that would show up. So I do feel like that is probably another top deficiency.
Yep. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. That's why the 3 deficiencies is not necessarily an enough number. There's a lot more deficiencies that we need to recognize. And if your cellular wall is not optimized, then there's going to be a significant issue when it comes to disease and how your body functions.
Absolutely, yeah. Excellent. Okay, you've answered that. How do you know what supplements to take? You've answered that. What are the best vitamins to take as we get older? I think you've really spoken to that as well, just in terms of this good ingredient list of things to take. It doesn't necessarily change whether or not you're 18 or whether or not you're 65, right? These are still the core ingredients. And
when it comes to personalized medicine, then we actually target it and look at more underlying issues, and then we can modify that for sure.
Yes. Amazing. Great. Well, I think you did it, Mo. I think you got through that really long list. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Christina. It was such an honor to be with you today, and thanks for throwing all those questions at me. It got me to exercise my brain and think about these things that I don't necessarily think about all the time. But going back to the foundations and basics always helps.
Yeah. No, definitely appreciate it. I'm so excited to share this with the community. I know that they're going to be excited to have more clarity around this, and yeah, just really appreciative of your time and your expertise. So thank you always for your wealth of knowledge.
My pleasure. Hope it helps.
Yes. Okay. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.